Well, hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to be talking about Quartzsite, Arizona. I did a video last year titled Why So Many People Go to Quartzsite, Arizona. This video is titled Why to Avoid Quartzsite, Arizona. Just want to say right off the bat, there's going to be some overlap between the two videos. I'll leave a link for the other video in the video description here where you can click on and watch that other video if you haven't seen it. But the reason why there's going to be some overlap is because a lot of the reasons why so many people go to Quartzsite are going to be a lot of the reasons why so many people avoid it. So just know that going in. I'm going to start off with just a little bit about Quartzsite. Quartzsite is a small desert town off of Interstate 10. And on the off seasons, like through the summer, the population is pretty low there. I think it's only about 1,000 or a little over 1,000. And in the winter months, it just blows up. There's just a ton of travelers, snowbirds that come in and spend their whole winter in Quartzsite. And we'll touch on some of the reasons why people do that. Quartzsite has some unique things about it. A little bit of the history, it's kind of always been this way. I think the peak of Quartzsite's visitation in the winter months was the mid-80s. People have been going there since this, late 60s, 70s. The 80s were really the peak for my research. And to this day, there's still quite a few people that go through Quartzsite, but I believe the mid-80s was when it was at its peak. One of the big draws is, of course, the milder winter weather. A lot of folks come from the north. Snowbirds are typically people that own homes in other parts of the country, and they're trying to get out of their harsh winters where they've been. A lot of times retired age, they've just had enough of dealing with shoveling snow, and they get in their RV and head down to Quartzsite for the winter and just get out of that nasty snow. So because of that, it gets pretty crowded. The landscape in Quartzsite is desert. It's mountainous desert. Quartzsite itself is very flat, but it's surrounded by rocky mountains. And I find the landscape very intriguing. I think it's very interesting. A lot of people think it's just barren and looks like they're on another planet. It is largely rock bed, meaning just small, mostly volcanic type rock embedded into the soil. It's smooth and flat. And very little vegetation. You'll see some big saguaro cactus, a lot of creosote bush, some palo verde trees, and that's about it. Some small desert plants and shrubs, but it's pretty minimal as far as the vegetation goes. And the weather, it is typically pretty mild, although it can get cool. So again, that is the big draw for a lot of people. So one of the unique things about Quartzsite is they have long-term visitor areas, and these are the big draw for a lot of the snowbirds, for a lot of the travelers that just want to settle down for the full season and not have to move around, and it's relatively inexpensive to do that in Quartzsite. These long-term visitor areas are owned by the Bureau of Land Management, federal organization that manages a lot of the land in the country, especially out west. There are other areas that are just owned by BLM, and you can camp on those for free up to 14 days. There's multiple areas around Quartzsite where they're official BLM camping areas where you can camp for free. You typically check in with a host at the entrance of the area. There's no fee for the permit. You get a permit from him or her and put it in your vehicle, and you're good for the next 14 days. The long-term visitor areas, there's multiple in Quartzsite where you pay a fee. It's $175 or around that for the full season, September to April, and it allows you to camp in one of these long-term visitor areas. And the reason why you would do that over the free areas is you can stay for the full season. I think that's almost 7 months. And you don't have to move. You can camp in one spot, post up there for multiple months, the whole season if you want, and not have to worry about moving. They have accommodations there. They have a big dumpster for your trash, RV dump stations for your black tanks and gray tanks, and then also water to fill up your water tanks. So for $175 to be able to stay a whole winter season, that's a really good deal for a lot of people. If you're coming from other places and you just want to settle down, or you've been traveling all year, that's the big attraction for a lot of people. But because of that, it gets really crowded. There's a lot of these camping areas that they're very well populated. So if crowds are not your thing, that's going to be the #1 reason to avoid Quartzsite. That, combined with the landscape, A lot of people are just really turned off by the desert. I have to have a disclaimer here. I am from the Southwest. I grew up in a camping family, and we camped primarily in the desert. And then in my teenage years, we got into off-roading. So I have a long history of camping in the desert. I think it's great. I don't see a lot of the negatives that a lot of people say, with it just being boring and there's nothing there. It's just a big dirt pit. Like, I don't see it. I see the beautiful Rocky Mountains, I see the beautiful sunsets, I see the giant cactus, and it's enjoyable to me. But for a lot of people, it's a huge turnoff. So that in itself, the crowds and a not appealing landscape, I mean, well, why would you go? There's really no reason. I have met people that stay in the long-term visitor areas, and they're not super excited about the landscape and where they're at. They're doing it more because they know how cheap it is. It saves them a ton of money through the winter, and then they've got more money for the summer months, the prime time traveling months, to go out and be in a lot more desirable places. So for a lot of people, it's just kind of, you know, hunker down, grin and bear it, and you'll get through and, you know, have saved some money. But there's a lot of other people that really enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the environment. You get amazing sunsets in the desert, and that's a huge pull for a lot of people. But for a lot, it's not. It can get dusty and windy in the desert. Like I said, it is rock bed. But to get in and out of these camping areas, that rock bed that gets displaced down to just the bare dirt, soil. It gets driven over and over with a lot of big RVs, a lot of different types of vehicles, off-road vehicles. And if it's windy at all, that dust just blows everywhere. So that, if you're bothered by that, crowds, dusty, windy conditions, it can be miserable. And if you've got a lot of other things that are bothering you about Quartzsite, compounded, it's just going to make for a miserable experience. So crowds, windy, dusty, not a whole lot going on with the landscape. Those are a lot of the main reasons why people don't want to go to Quartzsite. And I get it. I have spent probably 6 winters in Quartzsite and enjoyed it. The last couple, the crowds were kind of wearing on me, and that's why I'm not going this winter. I am not knocking Quartzsite at all. You're getting this information from someone that's actually spent a lot of time there and really enjoyed it. So, you know, take that for what it is. Other things going on in Quartzsite in the winter months. In January, which I believe is to be the busiest. So if you want to experience Quartzsite without all the crowds, I would suggest going either before or after January. If you show up in Quartzsite in late October, it's still a little warm. November, it's going to be a lot less crowded than it would be in like mid-January. And the reason why is in mid-January they have a big RV show there, and they also have another big event, the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, put on by Bob Wells and his organization. Bob's been doing that meetup for quite a few years. I went to my first one, 9 years ago. But it's gotten so big that it used to be just a group of people meeting out on public land, but now it's an official event held at the town park in Quartzsite. Totally free. It's an informational, community social type event where they have seminars of informational stuff that would be valuable to travelers and nomads and RVers, as well as just a great place to hang out and socialize and meet people. It's a really neat event. I've been a part of it for a couple years and attended quite a few more than that. So if these type of events aren't your thing, the Big RV Show is in mid-January, where they big RV vendors are there. You can tour new RVs, purchase one there. They have this giant tent set up that inside it's more like trade show type stuff. RV gear, camping equipment, you name it, people are selling it in there. Super crowded. That tent is insane inside there. You're just pushing through crowds of people. So again, if those type of events aren't your thing, you have no interest in them, not a reason to go to Quartzsite. Avoid. Outside of those events, the town of Quartzsite is relatively small. They've got, you know, a post office, a library, a fire department, police department, and a couple grocery stores, markets, a couple dollar stores, restaurants, places to eat, fast food places, a couple big truck stop gas stations. But for the most part, there's just a lot of shopping A lot of the stores shut down in the summer months, but in the winter, everything is going in full force. The town of Quartzsite leases a lot of roadside spots where vendors can set up a booth and park there and sell their products. A lot of private flea market type situations where it's just a big gravel parking area, and these people have come in with truckloads of goods and set it up flea market style, just stuff all set out on tables and piles of stuff everywhere. So again, if just shopping, spending money on stuff is not your thing, really no reason to visit Quartzsite. Rocks and gems are another kind of mainstay in Quartzsite. That's its namesake, Quartzsite. There's a lot of quartz embedded in the rocks in Quartzsite. It's been known as a mining area. It has a long history of mining for precious rocks and gems, as well as precious metals. So that's something that's going on. A lot of the vending is those precious rocks and gems. So again, not interested, really no reason to check out Quartzsite. The crowds, I think, would be the biggest deterrent for people. The town itself can get really overloaded. Like I mentioned, there's only a few markets, a few dollar stores, and if you need to go in and do some grocery shopping, you're usually going to be faced with tight parking in the parking lots, crowded stores, stuff missing off the shelves, inflated prices. So if that's something that wigs you out, you definitely don't want to avoid Quartzsite. I have a tough time. That's the part I have the biggest problem with in Quartzsite. So I've learned when I'm there, I do my shopping really early in the morning when places first open. Tend to beat the crowds. Places like the laundromat just get crazy, so going first thing in the morning. So being able to go about your business and shop in town, if you're overwhelmed by crowds easily, you definitely want to avoid Quartzsite. It can be crazy. It is manageable, but pretty crazy. The nearest shopping outside of shopping in the town of Quartzsite, you're going to have to drive at least 30 to 45 miles to the next neighboring town, and the shopping's only going to be mildly better. So yeah, you're kind of stuck in Quartzsite dealing with what Quartzsite has to offer. They do have a refuse center, basically a trash dump that's free. So that is nice. It can get busy there as well. So if you're accumulating trash at one of the long-term visitor areas, you have trash disposal there. But if you're out on just the regular public land for 14 days and you're accumulating trash, you can drive to the dump. It's just outside of town. It can get crowded too. It's very limited hours and limited days it's open. So you're going to be faced with some lines there as well. So again, coming back to crowds and things being crowded and overloaded. There is a huge social aspect going on in a lot of these camping areas. You'll see groups of people circled up. This place is a meeting place, a tradition for a lot of people. People that have been going there for years, and they've got spots that they go to year after year and circle up. They do fun things. They have nightlife, big campfires, live music sometimes, even karaoke. Sometimes there's drinking and partying going on, so if that type of thing bugs you, you definitely, Quartzsite, not the place for you. You can avoid that, but there's a lot of that going on. All different types of people in Quartzsite. Anywhere from people in broke down cars, camping out of tents, to almost $1 million setups in these big fancy travel buses and Class A RVs. But I found everyone seems to get along pretty well. I've heard stories of that being intimidating for people, going into a camping area and it be dominated by kind of the upper class of RVs, the more expensive, bigger rigs, and showing up and you yourself are in just like a little van or a truck camper or something and kind of not feeling welcome. I haven't experienced that, but I've heard from people that they have. I don't know if it's just in their head mentally or if they've actually have encounters with people where they said they're not welcome. I've noticed that people kind of tend to break off in cliques type situation where the big RVs kind of tend to hang together, rightly so. A lot of them run generators, and the tent camping people would kind of want to be in another area away from those loud generators. Usually people in tents aren't running generators, so I think there's some kind of division amongst classes in that way, just because it works better. But for a lot of people, they feel like there's discrimination and they're being judged. Again, I haven't experienced that, but that's feedback I've got from people. So if you're a socially awkward person, and I'm one of them, it's challenging for me to be in Quartzsite, but I make the best of it and put myself in places where I feel most comfortable. But if you're socially awkward and really don't have an interest in meeting new people and getting to know other people and sharing yourself, your life with their lifestyle, probably not a good fit for you as well, because there's a lot of that going on. And really, to me, that's the big pull. If you really want to go and have a good experience in Quartzsite, you're going to want to check out some of the big events. You're going to want to socialize and meet new people, even if it's taking you out of your comfort zone. And you're kind of want to poke around town and see what town has to offer. And if all those things don't appeal to you, you really have no reason to go to Quartzsite, Arizona. So I've got a little list here I've been kind of reading off, and I think I've covered everything. And I welcome anyone that's experienced Quartzsite to share in the comments your experience, whether it was good or bad. And yeah, I hope this video was helpful for some people, and the video footage that I overlaid gives you an idea what it looks like and how things go down. I would recommend it to anybody. I think it's something that you should just experience, even if it's just once in your lifetime. But for a lot of people I know, they've gotten that advice and they've gone there and experienced it, and they wish they wouldn't have done it. So, you know, take that for what it is. Take my information for what it is. Again, I will not be doing Quartzsite this year, mainly to avoid the crowds. I'm just kind of not feeling up for it socially. Doesn't mean I won't ever be back. Possibly the following year I will be there. But that is it. For the meat of everything I've covered, you can avoid a lot of the negatives by not going to Quartzsite in the peak season, which to me would be December, January, February. If you could hit one of those bumper months, November, March, it's going to be a little bit warmer, but there'll be a lot less people. There'll be a lot less going on, a lot less of all that vending and stuff that I spoke of. But at the same time, if you just want to experience the area, the landscape, I think one other thing I forgot to touch on is the off-roading. That is another big thing that a lot of people do there. They've got these side-by-sides. Those have become extremely popular. Four-wheelers, motorcycles, Jeeps, off-roading trucks and those types. There are miles and miles and miles of off-road trails, and a lot of them go around and even through some of the camping areas. So if those type of vehicles and the dust and the noise that they make bother you, that would be another reason to avoid Quartzsite, because there is a lot of that going on. And really, these side-by-sides have gotten so popular, it seems like almost everyone owns one these days. And some people are more respectful of others than other people are. Some people will go by your camp and slow way down as to decrease the noise and the dust, and other people, it almost seems like they speed up. So that can be real annoying. That's something that bothers me. I have a motorcycle, and I always try to be respectful when I go by people's camps, but a lot of people don't do that. That one just popped into my head. I didn't have on my list here. So, again, that's my little rundown on Quartzsite, Arizona. If you go, I hope you have a good season. And if you avoid it, I hope you enjoy your time avoiding all of the crowds and chaos that can ensue in Quartzsite. Appreciate you guys checking in. Again, leave any comments or experience you've had in the comment section, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care. Peace.